This session comes a few days after the last one, as I caught a sort of flu that kind of took me out of commission for a while. The the last session where I was a bit in a rush, I came home somewhat late from work, so I wanted to get some sprinting in, but I didn't really have that much time. And because I didn't want to compromise on warming up, I just did a warm up and then a few sets of sprint starts and a couple of sets of pull-ups at the end. By that time, when the pull-ups were rolling up, I was a bit sweaty. It was starting to be a bit chilly and windy, and that probably contributed to me catching a sort of a cold, because the next day I was cycling to work, and during the day I was feeling a bit of a build-up of a fever. I was feeling like my temperature was rising, and also I started experiencing a bit of a sore throat. So the next day, when I woke up, first I didn't sleep very well. Woke up, I wasn't really feeling good, and I decided not to cycle to work. So I took the public transport, which for me is the bane of my existence. I would do anything but to use public transport to go around the city and get to work. But I went to work because I was still able to. I didn't have a fever. I was feeling just this sore throat, being very cautious about catching a cold or anything else. No temperature, but still not feeling the best. So took the public transport. I came back home, and I didn't do any exercise because I didn't really want to make things feel any worse. The next days, things improved slightly, so I was able to use my bike to go to work. But at that point, I was being a bit on the lookout for symptoms getting worse. So I decided to keep my cycling to work the only activity that I was doing, and that went on for another couple of days. So overall, I ended up missing 3 days at the gym. So when finally the symptoms went away, and I cleared myself out to finally get some extra exercise in, I had a bunch of days to catch up from. So this is what this session was about, really. A bit of everything. Bunch of isolation movements that I decided to use to start the session out. I felt like if I was not really going to be pushing too much, it was probably a good thing to do to start the session with the more joint-friendly movements, and kind of treat those as a bit of a warm-up for the entire body. So by the time that I was finished with these, using still weights that were challenging, but staying in above 10 repetition ranges, so that I was on the safe side of things. I had done most of the arms and shoulders, and then I moved over to the lower part of the body and finished off with some compound exercises. It was a bit of a giant set to begin with. I was doing some upright rows, followed by bicep curls and also overhead tricep extensions. It was all done by that cable machine, which was very convenient because I thought that I was able to really revolve the entire giant set around that one piece of equipment and kind of superset things on top of each other with minimal rest periods. That's what I did, and in between I was doing some hip work, getting those cable hip drives in, superset with this floor thrust here. So a bit of a dynamic component in that. And by the time that I was done with 2 sets of those, I went to the compound stuff. Couple of warm-up sets with some split jumps, getting the muscles ready for some heavier loads, and then I was getting in only 1 set per each compound. Started off with the single leg squats, worked my way up to 24 kilos, while in between also warming up my hamstrings for the Nordics. So as I was warming up for these 2 exercises, I was then ready to perform one sort of hard set of each of about 5 or 6 repetitions. So I did 6 reps per leg on the single leg squats, and then I did a set of 6 on the Nordic curls. That was because at this point my lung capacity wasn't even that great. I had a bit of a chesty cough still, so I guess that my cardio wasn't really back to 100%, and this session ended up being filled with different exercises, so stayed low on the volume for the compounds at the end of the session. Started off with the lower body and then moved over to the upper body with some, actually just one set for both the weighted pull-ups and weighted dips. In here, again, I stayed at an intensity that was manageable, challenging, but manageable is the way that I would describe it. By the end of the session, really all I wanted to do was be done with it. But also I felt like I was probably going to be able to put in one set of maintenance that allowed me to maintain a little of what I've been doing in the past weeks or so that I was really getting my body and my mind back into exercising daily, something that was not only just cycling to and from work, but getting back into the usual routine. It was annoying that unfortunately I wasn't able to get work done in these last few days, but I have learned that when the time comes that my body isn't really feeling well and there is a chance of me actually getting worse if I am pushing things, the best and safest option is just to take the loss, look after myself and come back when I'm stronger. I found that is the best way to do things. Ciao.